Right off the bat, I want to say thank you to Keller Max. I messaged him randomly with some questions I had, trying to get answers to this process, and he was very patient with me, and he was very nice, and he helped me get through it, even when I asked some probably stupid questions. So, huge thank you to him. I would not know how to do this if he didn't take the time out of his day to help me. Thank you so much. So if you've been using Source Filmmaker for a while, you probably know that as you get further and further into it, the more complex your aspirations get, the more difficult it becomes to find answers for it. You kind of just have to ask around and hope you meet the right person. As you go on, documentation gets more and more scarce. There are a few people that make or have made some tutorials for the more advanced side of things. The ones I can think of are Jimmerlins, Private Jack, Zach Scott, and the most well-produced set of videos that I've ever seen is from Patrick Hunt. Patrick Hunt is actually somebody that I contacted a few times on my journey of trying to get this process to work, and I could never get I could get a hold of him, but his process was I think some of the scripts he used ended up becoming outdated, and he just couldn't do it anymore, or maybe something else happened, or I'm not sure. My point with all of this being there are no tutorials for this. And I told myself all along the way, throughout trying to figure it out, that I would make a tutorial for it once I figured it out, so that hopefully nobody has to go through the struggles and pain that I went through trying to do it myself. So I don't want to waste too much more of your time. You're probably as frustrated as I was, but lucky you, you've got a nice video to show you how to do it. So here's what you need. You need Blender with Blender source tools installed. You need MotionBuilder. I have 2019. I tried it with my old 2013 version and it didn't work, so I got 2019. Maybe you could get 2020 or 2017 or 18 or whatever. And obviously a Source Filmmaker. You don't need Maya. You don't need 3ds Max. You don't need anything else. You need Blender with Blender source tools, MotionBuilder, Source Filmmaker, obviously. Getting Blender source tools into Blender is easy. Getting Blender is easy. It installs in seconds somehow. And Blender source tools is just an add-on. You can Google how to do that. Trust me, I know how annoying it is to be watching a tutorial and then they skip a step and tell you to go find it somewhere else, but I promise it's a zip file. You go to preferences, hit install, and you install it, and then you got it. So let's get into the actual process. We're going to take it semi-slow, but I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. I don't want to skip over any steps and end up frustrating people, and I also don't want to go extremely slow and end up frustrating people. So for this example, I'm going to be using the Valve biped rig because it's a pretty standard rig. A lot of models use it. It's an FK rig, but obviously once you convert your mocap and put it on that skeleton, you could put a biped rig on it if you want. So the first thing you're going to do is open Source Filmmaker. All you need to do, create a session, load up a map. Black Void will do just fine. For the record, this does not need to be your actual project that you're working on. This doesn't need to be your actual shot. Once your map is loaded, disable lighting so you can see. Create an animation set for a new model. Wait for this to load up, and then load up the model with the skeleton that you plan to use. So for me, just for example, we're gonna go with one of these guys. This guy right here. Now that you've got your model, all you need to do is take him in his regular T-pose and get one frame here. Go forward, split it so that it's one frame. I don't know if that really matters, but I did it. And go to your model here, right click him, export animation, and call this valve T-pose SFM. You can call it whatever you want. Keep yourself organized. You just need to know this is the valve skeleton coming straight out of SFM. Hit save. Make sure you got it. Got it. Now you can close SFM. So now you just need to open up Blender. Delete all this stuff that we don't need. The light, the camera, and this stupid little cube. Go to File, Import, and assuming you paused the video and went and installed Blender Source Tools, you should have the ability to import source engine assets. Click on this. Navigate to wherever you saved the animation we just dropped out, and hit import. Here you go. You got the skeleton who is for some reason sideways. I don't know what's up with that. I also don't know what this bone is. It's probably the view target. Whatever. Point is, we are now going to take this and export it. Go to unit scale, change this to 0.01. So from now, you're just going to click on this, go to File, Export, FBX, Desktop. Name this Blender Valve Skelly. We're going to turn off a few things here that we don't need. So click in here to make it unselect things. Click on armature, that's all you need. Unclick bake animation, go to armature, disable add leaf bones. Export. Close Blender. Something I forgot to say while I was recording is that the valve skeleton that you export from Blender, you can keep that and use it over and over again, and you won't have to do this first Blender step every single time. Now you got your Blender valve skelly. From now, you're going to take whatever motion capture data you have, whether you downloaded it online or you recorded it yourself, and get that where it's convenient for you. I've got a folder here with just some random stuff I downloaded on the internet. Just open up MotionBuilder. These are BVH, the exact same process for FBX. We're going to look through these for a second. BVH import. I don't know what any of these are because they're kind of unnamed. We're just going to go for this run cycle because there doesn't seem to be too much else in this pack that I want to use. So if you're new to MotionBuilder, the way you look around is up here at the top. You can scroll to zoom in and out. You can just click and hold these buttons to move around. So what we need to do in MotionBuilder is retarget the animation so that this skeleton goes onto our valve skeleton. And I know we don't have our valve skeleton in yet. Don't worry about it. What you need to make sure of is that you have a T-pose frame in your mocap. It could be literally one frame. There it is. What you need to do is go to characters down here at the bottom right, and then add a character. Don't add a character extension or an actor. Add a character. Click it, drag it into the viewport. Let go of it. Boom. You can kind of think of it as MotionBuilder creating a middleman between your animation, your mocap skeleton, which is this one, and your SFM skeleton. So essentially what we're going to do is tell MotionBuilder, for example, that this bone on this skeleton is this bone on MotionBuilder's skeleton that it uses to convert things. We're basically telling it what bone is what. Down here where it says character settings, click the tab next to it, go to character definition, scroll down a little bit to the base bones, which are the ones that are required. Have to tell MotionBuilder what to do with these or else it can't continue. There are other bones like fingers and stuff like that that are optional, because your mocap might not have finger tracking. I don't think this one does. But these base ones you have to convert. So open up that tab. So here's all the bones: hips, legs, the spine, the arms, the head, yada yada yada. So in order to get the bones from this skeleton, you go over here to scene, open it up, BVH reference, that's the name of this skeleton. Open that up, and boom, you got your first bone. As you open more of these, it's kind of the hierarchy of bones. So everything starts at the hip. From the hip, you have the spine and the legs. It goes out in all the directions. You know how this works if you're doing this, I'm assuming. So you basically just need to use your common sense on what bone on this skeleton equals what they call the bones over here. So the hip, that's the hips. Obviously, that's an easy one. So in order to assign these bones the way that we need to, click on it from over here, drag it where it says drop object. Boom. Now MotionBuilder knows this bone here is this bone here. So the way things get kind of tricky is that the skeleton that has your mocap, from wherever you got it, whether you downloaded it or you recorded it yourself, whoever processed this mocap, whatever skeleton they assigned it to, might have different names. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. So abdomen, for example, is what I would call the spine, and that's what MotionBuilder calls the spine as well. So you can click on them over here and it'll highlight it for you if you know it has some weird name that you don't really know what to do with. So the abdomen, we can tell because it highlights it, it's the spine. So click on abdomen over here and find spine over here and assign it. There you go. So what we did for the abdomen, we're going to go through and do for all the other bones. For example, the neck. The neck actually isn't shown here. I believe neck is under auxiliary. There it is, neck. The neck. The right collar. What this skeleton calls the collar, MotionBuilder calls the right shoulder. So add that. Do the same with the left collar and the left shoulder. I'm going to cut this out because you don't need to see me sit here and click and drag all this. I'm sure you get it. Assign the bones to what you would assume the bones are called. Once you've assigned all the bones that you find necessary, with the required bones being the base bones, you go right here and click on Characterize. Click on Biped. Now basically what you've got is this skeleton assigned to a character in MotionBuilder that can be used to transfer it onto other characters, or onto other skeletons, excuse me. If you don't know what that means, just follow along. Go here where it says characters, open it up, right click on character, this is the one that we just made. Right click on it, rename, and name it whatever's easiest for you, just so that you know that it's your skeleton with the mocap. I'm going to call it the OG Skelly. It's the original skeleton that has the animation that I need. Hit enter. Go to your desktop, or wherever you saved your FBX that we saved out of Blender. Drag it into the preview window here. FBX merge, whatever it says for you. Mine says no animation because there's no animation on it. Click OK through all these. It should be fine. Now we have a skeleton that is still on the floor. Isn't that weird? Click on this. It's basically the root transform, and you can rotate it up. I would actually recommend not eyeballing it. You can see these numbers down here. I would assume because it's so close to 0, it's supposed to be 0. Now it's standing up straight. The scale difference is fine. Don't worry about it. It's okay. But what you do need to worry about is how your original skeleton is in a T-pose and the valve skeleton is not. So to fix this, we're going to go through and click on these bones. For some reason, for me, they're really skinny and I can't really click on them. But you can click and drag over them and it'll select them properly. Now, this is another thing I would really recommend not eyeballing. You can, but I mean, why eyeball when you could get it as precise as possible? So to get this in a proper T-pose, you're just gonna select, whatever bone you want to straighten out right now, and pay attention to these numbers down here. Notice how this one is 175, because that's so close to 180. I'm gonna assume that for it to be straightened out properly, we would set this to 180. And that didn't quite do it, so we're gonna do it with the other ones. This one's very close to 0, we're gonna set it to 0. This one's closest to 180, or negative 180, we're gonna set it to 180. And boom, there you go, it's straightened out. So just pay attention to what these numbers are, and what they're closest to, whether it's 0, 90, 180, negative 90, negative 180, and sort of correct them that way. So go through and do this to all of your bones. I'm going to cut it out because it's boring. Alright, now that you got your arms straightened out, the characterization that we just did for this model, or this skeleton, we need to do the same thing for this skeleton. So go down here, make sure you're not clicked on anything. Go down here, add a character into the blank space, let go of it, and do the same thing you did. Go down to scene, find the skeleton, and do the same process. Also, for both of these, I would recommend doing the toes if you have toe mocap. That way the feet will kind of bend properly if they touch the ground or anything like that. Also, if you click around in these things, you might find some hidden bones, like the right shoulder is a bone that both my mocap skeleton has and the valve skeleton has, so it would be best to assign it. And you can find that by clicking on these pictures, using the right shoulder for example, and find the name of the bone. So once you're done applying all the bones to this skeleton as well, do the same thing. Hit Characterize, click Biped. Right now I'm just going back and tweaking some of these bones. I unlocked the characterization and I'm just kind of tweaking them to get them as straight as possible. You see over here that they're orange or anything. It's just kind of a heads up that they might not be perfectly T-posed, and you can go through and fix some of that. So if you do go back and unlock it to adjust the bones at all, just make sure you click this again to lock it in place. But anyway, if you've gone through and you have successfully characterized this skeleton, make sure you go into your characters tab and rename it. I'm going to name this Valve Skelly. There we go. So click on the Valve Skelly down here now that you've characterized both of them. Go up to where it says Source, change it to OG Skelly. Make sure the character is selected on Valve Skelly in case it didn't work before. Now if you skim through, you'll see that the mocap skeleton has tracked the animation, or has retargeted the animation onto your Valve Skelly. Look at him go. And if you notice that at some point the timeline isn't letting you scrub through, it probably changed take. So just click on here and click on take 1. That's where you should be, and it should be working. So if everything looks good, you don't see any adjusting that you need to do, make sure you go back to your first frame, open the scene tab again, click on your valve skeleton, or whatever it was originally called. It's Melo 2. Right click, it's select branches. Now go up here to this blue icon, click on it, go to bake or plot, whatever you want to call it. Click bake to skeleton. Now you've got this animation actually on this one. It's not kind of projecting it like it was a second ago. Now it's actually on this skeleton. Go up to File, Motion File Export. Wherever you want to put it, I'm going to make a folder here called MotionBuilder Export. That's fine. Name it whatever you want to name it. I'm just going to name it Mobu Export. Hit save. Make sure this is clicked on selected models only. Make sure it's only the take that you need. If you have any listed here, the correct take is right here. As long as you're able to scrub through here, it means you're on the correct take. Well, as long as you can scroll through here and everything looks right in the viewport, it means you're on the correct take. For me, it's called take 01. So you only need to select take 01. For me, it's the only one here. So all takes will do just fine. But if you have multiple here, just click on the one that you need. Make sure one take per file is enabled, and add prefix on file name isn't really necessary, so you can uncheck that if you want. Hit export. It exported. Close MotionBuilder. You can save if you want to. Maybe something goes wrong and you want to come back to this. You can save if you want. I don't need to save. Good. Here we got our folder right here with our mocap file. Open up Blender yet again. Delete all the stuff that we don't need here. File, import, FBX, navigate to wherever you just saved that, and open it. Here you go. You might notice the bones are weirdly rotated and strange looking. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. What we need to do again is go to the Scene Properties tab, go to Units, set it to 0.01. It's all good. Hit A, hit Alt S, go to this orange button here, make sure this is set to 1 as it should be, and we should be all good. From here, click on your skelly that's up here at the top right just to make sure it's selected. Go down to where it says Source Engine Export, select where you want it to export to. For me, I will make another folder here, new folder. Blender export. You could probably dump this right onto your desktop, but I just do things in folders for some reason. Make sure DMX is selected here. Don't touch anything else. Hit export and hit the one that looks correct, Melo2 take one.dmx, like that. Boom, it's exported. Guess what you just did? You just retargeted fully, start to finish. Open up the folder, open the anims folder that it creates for you. Here's your DMX file. To prove to you that it works, I will open up Source Filmmaker and show you the animation on the skeleton. Hit OK. Boom, you got your animation. For some reason he comes out sideways. I don't know why that is. I hope that's not a problem for you. Hopefully if it is, you can figure it out. But of course he'll need tweaking. He's looking funny, his neck is funny, his hands don't really move right, his thumb's a little bit messed up here. Who knows, to be honest. But now you've got your FBX mocap in SFM. And that's it. That's the whole process from start to finish. Again, the biggest thank you goes to Keller Max. All the credit goes to him. If you have any questions, I'll put my Discord in the description. I can't promise I'll know everything, and I'm not going to put Keller Max's Discord down there because I don't know if you would want that. But you can talk to me. If I don't know anything, I'll try to figure it out. Yeah. See you on the flip.